Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing podcast, and we have got, listeners, the Pau Preview show for you. And the Pau Preview show and the review show, which will be coming up post-event, is brought to you by our good friends at Achieve Equine. And you guys may know them best because they produce flare strips, which we will talk about in a little bit more detail in a second. Dee is with me. Dee, before we start, I feel like we ought to set the scene because I'm actually away this week. It's half term and I'm away. I'm hidden away in a corner of the house where we're staying. There are 3 small children careering around the rest of the house. So if we get interrupted, listeners, I'm really sorry. Hopefully we won't, but I'm just putting an early disclaimer out there. You know what it's like, Dee.
I do. I'm in blissful peace. Everyone's in school.
Peace, school.
It's amazing. There's just amazing few hours in the day where they're gone. This is the happy time of my day. Drop from school and come home. I'm like, that's the longest possible time now that I'm going to have to myself.
It's the silence. So to also set the scene for you listeners, before we did actually start recording, we did get interrupted and Toby came in and put my headphones on and was chatting away to Dee and no idea what the two of them were saying. And when they finished, Toby then asked me about all the presents that I was apparently going to buy him. So thanks for that, mate. Appreciate it.
No worries. Anything for an easy life for you, Nicole?
Yep, love it. Thank you very much. Right, flare strips. Let's talk about them for just a second, because I think this is one of those things that plenty of people listening to this show will have either heard us talk about. You know, we worked with Achieve Equine on both the Le Moulin and the Badminton preview and review shows a little bit earlier on this year. They're supporting our 5-star coverage. And there'll be plenty of people listening that kind of go, well, I've seen flare strips. I don't really know what they do. I don't know the science behind it. But pretty much every horse, first of all, Dee, that we see competing at the very, very top level of the sport, and particularly at the business end of the competition as well, you know, those that are going on to pick up the big results, have used flare strips, particularly for the cross-country phase.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's... once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know what flare strips are, why they are, the science behind it, and there is a lot of science and time and effort and thought put into this. Once you see this and you know what they are and why they are, yeah, they're actually everywhere. It's like 9 in 10 horses in badminton, 9 in 10 horses in Kentucky, and they're moving more and more into Europe. So these European 5-stars are a focus for them, which is why we're doing them on our European previews. I know we did them on badminton as well, Nicole, but I expect that you'll see them a lot this weekend again. What do you know? Because I'm always interested in what the perception of it is and what you think you know and what you know. I mean, there's so much, so you can pretty much pick any of the elements of it. But what?
I mean, I've learned a lot about them this year because when I was competing, they weren't available. I so wish they had been. But essentially, the first thing you say about flare strips is that they are totally drug-free. So how it works is it's the strip that goes over a horse's nose. And what it does is it basically supports the soft tissue in the nasal passage, which reduces the tissue that collapses, which happens in all horses during exercise. So if you think that actually during cross country, it's a really intense piece of exercise, that actually by supporting the tissue in the nasal passages, actually it means that they conserve energy. So they have been proven to use 5 to 6% less energy during intensive exercise, and also helps with recovery and helps them cool down more quickly. So it helps them breathe more easily, it reduces fatigue, conserves energy, it helps them recover more quickly. And if you think when you're at this level of competition, that is, you know, the marginal gains that really, really make a difference. And particularly, you know, 11, 12 minutes of a 5-star cross country, that is a very intense piece of exercise. You want your horse to be able to breathe as efficiently and as effectively as possible. You want them to be able to recover quickly. You want them to use as little energy as possible. But I think the thing for me is that actually, whether you're competing at the top end of the sport or whether you're competing at grassroots level of the sport, actually it's all relative, and we all want the absolute best for our horses. So anything that we can do to help them is an advantage. So, I mean, I just think it's an absolute no-brainer. And the other thing, which I have to say, I absolutely love, it's the girl in me, Dee. You will probably laugh slightly, but actually, because they come in all different colours, you get the different color coordination side of things as well. So some of the most sort of obvious ones, like Izzy Taylor has like a really kind of bright turquoise that matches her cross country colors. You know, other riders have similar. I think there's pink ones, there's blue ones, you name it. They've got absolutely everything, and so it just kind of adds to the image. I mean, it's marketing genius as well because it actually makes them very eye catching.
Yeah.
But I love that side of it too. So not only do they do a brilliant job on helping your horses perform better and recover as quickly as possible, they also look quite cool as well.
Well, that's not a small thing, because I remember when we were initially getting to know that team, like we were researching the product before we spoke to them, and like on the timeline it shows you like when all the different so like for the first, I don't know, let's say 15 years, I'm guessing here now, but it's around that. It's a good long period where there's just the plain one, and it's, you know, it's more science. It's not that we've moved away from science, but basically it's the thing. And then actually the marketing side of it grows, I think, in the later years, where they begin to release limited edition styles of the actual strips. So the strips are the same all the way through, but I think like there's a 5-star one at the moment, Nicole, which was released at Kentucky this year.
Like there's like Union Jacks and all sorts, and I think
Yeah.
don't get like the science behind it is absolutely incredible. And I would say go away, do your own research because it is really, really interesting how it works and kind of what they've put in to be able to get these results. But actually, the way it's kind of developed and the way it's become kind of part of the modern sport is also really important because actually, I think
Mm.
you know you can have science in everything. You know, science is critical and ultimately it has to do a job. But it's helped when it has a real kind of tie
Bloody
into
science.
modern eventing as well. No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it. So anyway, that is Flare Strips. The
Yeah.
UK and Ireland distributors are Equine Products UK. But
Yeah.
basically, if you go online all over the world, you'll be able to track down where you can find Flare Strips and talk to them because, you know, find out more information and how they might help you. But that is a little bit more
They're at
information
most of the
about,
big shows, true equine products.
yeah, in the UK and Ireland. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll definitely get them. They were in Maryland last week. They're like sponsoring loads of classes and shows and everything. They're big in America, obviously.
So basically, go and check them out. And if you haven't used them, then give it a go because everything for making our horses as happy and as healthy and as comfortable as possible. Okay, Poe, this week, first of all, I feel like we need to address what feels like the elephant in the room to me and Dee, but maybe you guys haven't noticed.
To you.
To me, okay, it feels like the elephant in the room to me. But on the Maryland Review Show, which we actually recorded yesterday, so we recorded it on Tuesday, we finished off a great big debate about Cooley Rosalind being the next British 5-star winner. And, you know, it could happen in Kentucky and it's, you know, really one to watch. And Dee and I put quite a lot into this healthy debate. Anyway, we hung up the recording and we both looked at each other and we were like, oh, so when are we going to record Poe? You know, the next 5-star that's happening next week that has basically what the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
top,
6
nearly
of the
the
top
top
7
10.
in the prediction center are British riders. They are going to be the next British 5-star winner if they win Poe. So it felt like we properly stuck a foot in the mouths. But anyway, maybe you didn't notice it. Once I kind of thought about it, I couldn't unthink it. So public service apology from us. We know we got it wrong. You were probably shouting at your radios, but hey ho. So Brits hot favourites actually for Poe. The prediction centre is headed up by Tom McEwen, JL Dublin, 21% win chance ahead of Ros Cantor, and her Blenheim winner Islot DHI. 5-star debut for that horse, which is really exciting. 20% win chance for them. Then you've got Piggy March, Cool Park, Sarko, the only other one in double figures of 15%. Pippa Funnel, Billy Walk On, Ros Cantor, Pencross, Crown Jewel. Tim Price, Happy Boy, is in there with 5%. We'll talk about him in a bit. Izzy Taylor, Happy Days. So they're the top 7 on the prediction center. I mean, as you can tell, it's pretty British focused. I would actually say it's a really strong 5-star field. There's a lot of strength and depth. There's some really nice horses in the field. There's some young horses stepping up to the level for the first time. There's some returning superstars as well, the likes of Jesse Campbell's Diacello, who he obviously rode at the Tokyo Olympic Games, had a bit of time off since, but back at 5-star level. Janelle Price's McLaren, who was top 10 at the Worlds last year, all in the field. So it's a very, very, very strong field. I want to start, though, Dee, where we usually start, where it has to be said, with the favourites. Tom McHugh and JL Dublin, second at Kentucky this spring. They were second at Buccleuch at the back end of last year. It feels like, they were so close to being the Aachen winners when they had 20 penalties cross country, and it meant that Yasingham took the title. They then had that fall at the Europeans when they were competing as individuals. 2 pretty high profile upsets. It feels like actually Pau's their time to get back on track for a potential tilt at Paris next year.
Say that again. It feels like Pau is their. I'll tell you what, Pau has to be their time. They need to get back on track.
If it doesn't go to plan this weekend, it feels like actually that's probably
that could be it.
Like this is the moment. Like Tom McHugh and JL Dublin, one of the favourites going into the Europeans. They were so close to that Aachen title, going cross country under some pressure. It's like this. They've got to go well this weekend.
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's only really when you set it up like that, Nicole, that you kind of think, "Whoa, that is." Yeah, you probably are right. I wasn't there. I mean, you're right. When you actually just think about it, that is all correct. And he is under pressure. He has been under pressure before. I think he went to Aachen, was it last year with Toledo, under similar pressure, having had a mistake at badminton earlier in the season. JL Dublin is clearly a class horse. Tom is clearly a class rider. I feel like I've said that on multiple shows recently. But you're right. It's just results. It's just a results business, and it's more of a results business than ever in the US, in the UK at the moment. Like, you look at the horse that we're going to talk about in a minute, I think, with Islot DHI and Ross Cantor, and you realize, oh my God, like probably one of the best horses in Britain at the moment. Not even favorite. Oh, sorry. What I mean is not just not even favorite. Not even her number one.
No, I know.
I'd say Islot DHI is on every team in the world, possibly including the British team, by the way, because Graffalo has to get there. Graffalo is clearly, and we've talked about this recently, but Graffalo is clearly a kind of a Constitution Hill style freak of the sport that we'll see every so often. But horses are horses, and like we have to just get Graffalo to all these competitions. To have Islot there as well. Oh man,
it's huge, and I would say it's interesting because actually, particularly the top 2 in the prediction centre in JL Dublin, Tom McHugh, and Ross Cantor, Islot DHI. Those 2 horses, if they go well this weekend, all of a sudden could be among the favourites for the individual golds in Paris. They are both very capable of scoring low in the first phase and finishing on that score. JL Dublin possibly got a couple of questions to kind of overcome this week, but it's easy to forget. New partnership, taking on a horse at the top level, you've got to find the right buttons, you've got to make that partnership happen, you've got to cement it. Tom's a world-class rider. The horse is world-class, been beautifully produced by Nicola Wilson, won that European Championship title in Avanche. Make no mistake, they're brilliant. And if they pull it all together this weekend, they go back into everybody's minds of kind of one of those 3 in a team for Tokyo.
But if they don't, middle of the road finish. Like,
I
forgetting the stick, but
I feel
yeah, it
like
won't be a middle of the road finish with it.
it's not going to be a middle of the road finish. They either are on the podium or they don't finish, or there's been a disaster. Do you know what I mean? If we
That's
talk about
probably it, though. I
Islot
mean, sorry to go back. I hadn't really put that jeopardy in place. I hadn't really gone that far, but I think you're right. I think it is that big.
Islot DHI, you kind of touched upon there. Lordship Scrafolo, obviously Rosa's kind of number one pick, European champion, won badminton by a record margin. He is a freak of nature in the sport. You know, it's very, very
Scrapple.
exciting to see him next year. However, as you say, everybody knows things can go wrong with horses. To have a number two that is this strong is huge for Ros. And Islot DHI, he hasn't always been the most straightforward. He can be a little bit tricky. You know, his 20 penalties that he picked up at Bramham this year were from spooking at some ice cream cones at fence 3. And he had a run out just because he was, you know, having a little look. And yet at Blenheim, and when he ran at Blair the week before or a couple of weeks prior to Blenheim, and when we've seen him before, he has just been absolutely phenomenal. He scored that brilliant sub 20 at Chatsworth earlier on this year, actually in the 4-star, which was like an 18.6 or something. Now, it wasn't even 18.6, it was 18.0. Now, I would say that was on mud, on grass or muddy grass. It was wet. It was deep enough for going. You put him on a surface this weekend. Blenheim was on grass as well, but you put him on a surface this weekend. We could see an absolutely insane test at 5-star.
Yeah, probably the only. I mean, I was thinking there, is she the only rider that could sub out her top horse and possibly still win the gold? But then I thought Julia did it. When imagine Julia had Chipmunk taken away or Chipmunk left.
Yeah, and then Samurai to toe.
And then Samurai nearly died and was sick.
And so she kind of,
But like, by the way, they're both two of the best horses. Samurai never really got to show it at the very top for a long period. But Samurai to toe for me was, I think, one of the most supremely talented of them all. Like, would have been an absolute, would have won gold, hopefully, I think. Oh, freak, Samurai. Anyway, you ended up with Amanda Bonneville. And she was able to do it with Amanda Bonneville. It's like that Julia story doesn't get the coverage it deserves. Like, that's mental. That's amazing, like, what happened there.
We were talking yesterday, actually, about our favourite episodes of the podcast, and I knew I was going to have forgotten one on the Maryland Review show. But Julia's post-gold interview was just incredible. It was honest, very humble, very kind of real. Like the tough kind of mental strength that she's had to kind of pick up over the last few years is huge. And she's just a really, really nice person at the end of it as well. Like, that's well worth going back and having listened to, listeners. I'd really, really recommend it. Might do so myself.
Tim Burke. That's for you.
Tim Burke, there we go. There's one for you to listen to. Okay, so Islot DHI, I would say there is a slight question in so much as, can he pull it all together, step up to 5-star? He's obviously ready. He's more than experienced at the 4-star level now. He's been brilliant, but he can have the odd moment where he's just a little bit tricky. Ros is literally one of the, like, if not the best rider in the world. She knows him inside out, pretty close. Not going to get into who's the best rider in the world conversation. You can't argue it, though. She is phenomenal, and I think they know this horse very, very well. They'll be working him very much to kind of peak this weekend. They wouldn't be bringing him if they didn't feel that he was going to run really well.
So. Oh no, he's amazing, by the way. I'm with you. That's not a doubt for me. I mean, there is the 5-star question to answer, but you would expect you would expect that they answered pretty well. So yeah, I wouldn't see any issue there. What's interesting though, as you go through it, is you've got JL Dublin, big question to answer, from a form question to answer. You've got Eyes a lot, a first time at the level question to answer. Both of them could win on a 20.
Yep.
Both of them have
entirely
to have
possible.
a question to answer. Right, who's next? What questions are we asking about the next combination?
So the next one's a really interesting one, actually. It's Piggy March and Cool Park Sarko, who I mean, plenty of you will remember this horse, listeners. You know, he won the 8-9-year-old class in 2021. He was fourth at Buccleuch the year that Nicola Wilson won her European Championship title with JL Dublin. So he was a stablemate of JL Dublin at the time that Nicola was in sensational form. Of course, Nicola then had her fall in 2022. And so the horse went to her very good friend, Piggy March. Now, the horse actually went to Bramham for the 4-star long format. Literally, that was where Nick was aiming him for. And of course, after Badminton, she wasn't able to compete him. So the plan was for him to still go to Bramham. So Piggy hadn't actually competed him internationally. I think she'd had maybe an OI run. And he was actually on track to win. He led the dressage in a very, very, very emotional manner on the first phase. Like it was extraordinary, the feeling at Bramham, Nicola's home event. So soon after her accident that I don't think there was a dry eye in the house after that test. It was extraordinary. He then had 20 penalties cross country. It was late. It was a sort of a miscommunication coming down a hill to a skinny brush fence, and he just had a drive-by. Now, we haven't actually seen a huge amount of him since then because he then missed a year. So that was June 2022. We didn't see him back out again until Mill Street 2023 when he won the long format 4-star at Mill Street. Came back and won the 4-star short at Bergam, which I actually saw him at, and he was phenomenal. He was as good as I've ever seen him in that 4-star. He beat Ballamore Class into second. He beat Valmy Biatz. He beat Pencos Crown Jewel. It was like an absolute down to the wire in terms of cross country seconds, and he came out on top, and it was just absolutely phenomenal. So he has very much come out in brilliant form this year. We just, I guess, haven't seen a huge amount of the partnership. I don't think he's quite as low in the first phase as JL Dublin and as Islot DHI, but I'm really excited to see him because I feel like he is a bit of a unknown quantity. I mean, it's a 5-star debut for him. Piggy's obviously brilliant. Exciting. Really exciting. Could throw a whole cat amongst the pigeons.
You're right in that it's another question. It's actually shaping up to be quite an interesting competition, even after
it's
these
really,
three.
really
I'm
cool.
looking forward
it's
to whoever
really
comes next. What happens here? Okay, she's coming off the back of a disappointment in Maryland. As we were leaving Maryland, Nicole, I don't know if I told you this on the review show, but we were leaving Maryland, and so we watched Austin jump. We went down to say congratulations to him, and we're at the bottom of the chute. Like, we weren't hanging around now. It was 4:00. Flight was at 8:00. We're an hour away. But even still, you're pretty confident you'd be there 3 hours before. Like, I mean, you don't even need 3 hours. 2 hours would be loads. So
you're so much more laid back than me getting a flight. I'm like, got to be there 6 hours before we fly.
Yeah, but you'd be in a different zone. But I mean, like, that we were leaving with plenty of time anyway. Until we met Tom March at the shoot as well with Sam and Tom March. Piggy kind of, obviously still disappointed about how the weekend had panned out. And then Sam was like, "Oh, don't worry, they're coming with us now." And then he goes, "I'll sort an Uber." And then he looked at me and he goes, "We'll sort an Uber." I was like, "Oh, I'll sort."
I don't even know if Sam knows what an Uber is.
Yeah, no. In fairness, he actually can work Uber, but he. Long story short, it was very difficult to get out of Maryland. There was no Ubers. Eventually, it turned out to work the other way around. Like, we would have been very stuck, but Tom and Peggy let us get a lift with them. Tom drove so that we could actually get back to the airport. So we were very fortunate that they took us in and actually took us back to the airport. But it did mean then that we had the hour.
I'm really confused. So you said that they were coming with you.
We offered them a lift. As it
Right.
turned out, we couldn't fulfill that
But
promise.
so how did they have a car?
They were then stranded because we'd offered them a lift,
Right.
which we couldn't fulfill. So then they had to, source a car. They had to ask the event for a car. I think Joni maybe sorted it for them, something like that.
Oh. Well, that would have been awkward, wouldn't it?
Well, awkward for us all. Like, we'd offered them a
mean,
lift, and then we got them stuck in Maryland. I mean, that was a strong possibility there for a few minutes.
all's well that ends well. All's well that
yeah.
ends well.
Well, we got them. We had a good chat in the car. They were, I mean, serious setup. Piggy's team. Fair play. Like, in terms of moving the horses, who's going where. Tom and Piggy are flying home, wash their clothes, fly to Pau, meet the horses. One lorry leaving the UK, one lorry, making its way back through wherever, JFK, to try and get home. Impressive. It's only really, like we talked about sometimes after events, it's only when you actually talk to the riders and the grooms and the teams that you realize, God, it's a huge, just for them to arrive at this trot up, it's a huge amount of logistics from
It's
Piggy
a massive
to go
operation.
From Maryland to Pau.
Can you remember?
Different horses.
Can you remember the ash cloud? When we had the ash cloud after Kentucky, and there was a week between Kentucky and Badminton, and there were riders. Wasn't it something mad? Like William was on or Oliver was on for the Grand Slam or something. Like, it was a really high profile kind of week, and basically then they kept getting or Michael Young was on for it or something, and they kept getting their flights cancelled and couldn't make it to Badminton because of this ash cloud. Anyway, they eventually made it and it was all fine, but they had to come a very circuitous route. Let's pick up on a couple of the others, because you've got Pippa Funnel, Billy Walk-On, who really interestingly, actually, so he's fourth on the prediction centre. He's had a couple of blips at both Badminton and Blenheim this year, but he has been top 10 at Burghley. He's been second at Bicton in the 5-star. His 5-star record is a little bit hit and miss. It's sort of 50-50. He either goes really well or there's a silly 20 penalties, and I think Pippa generally will kind of put a hand up and save him for another day. So I think that's an interesting one in terms of how that plays out, because they're very capable of being able to produce that kind of result.
Nicole, would you say that?
Yeah, definitely.
We're putting more questions beside them. We've got the first 4 all out. So what's Pippa's question? Piggy's question is, I suppose, like recent
clear
form,
cross country.
And Pippa's question is, can the horse jump clear around Pau because they've got very patchy 5-star form? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
You've then got Ros Cantor, Pencross Crown Jewel. So Ros actually has
Burghley.
Two really strong chances. She's got 2 inside the top 5 on the prediction centre. Pencross Crown Jewel is the other of hers. And actually, they were going brilliantly at Burghley until they tipped up at the Dairy Mount. But that horse actually did a very, very good test at Burghley. They were absolutely thrilled with her. She's a really fun little horse. She's just, I guess you look at, if you put her next to Billy Walk-On, who's a massive, great big strapping horse, then Jasmine is more of like a pocket-sized event.
Jasmine, is that what she's called?
Pony. Jasmine at home. Yeah, she's really fun, really cool. And she's not always the easiest, but they've kind of figured out what makes her tick, and really kind of make it work for her. They're very, very good. I think all of these top yards are figuring out how these horses are best managed. I think there is a bit of a question mark, well, to be fair, I'm not going to say there's a question mark over their cross-country form, because they had a tip-up at Burghley, didn't go to plan. Their last fall was back in 2020, but other than that, they've been on numerous clear rounds cross-country since, including Badminton, where she was 9th,
but they have to come back from Burghley.
Yeah, but she's been second at Bramham. I mean,
I'm with you. I'm only because I'm enjoying this question game. Okay, that's all. I agree with you. Other than they have to come back from that.
Yeah,
so that's question mark
because
they're returning from a fall.
Yes, but I'd say she should be. She should be back on track. in my mind.
Yeah, but also we're talking about winning. We're talking about winning, okay? Like she has a little bit of a question mark in the first phase. Not a huge one, but they're gonna have to find a little bit.
To be fair, I wouldn't even say a question mark in the first phase as such. You know,
Okay.
she's comfortably, really
I'm trying to
comfortably,
fit in with this
a
game,
sub
though.
30. She's very comfortably a sub 30 score.
Correct.
However,
Yeah.
she's not sub 25 that frequently. She has been sub 25 at Burley previously, actually. But that was kind of her only sub 25 score at the 5-star level. So, you know,
You do get a little bit desensitized, though, like when you're just talking about the top 5 in a prediction center, or when you're just reviewing the top 5 in a competition week on week. Like comfortably sub 30.
It's really bloody good.
Yeah, like it's amazing. Like it's amazing. Like if they were going to Maryland, who well obviously Rosalind did a while at 23. It wasn't
Should
too
have been
many.
well in the mix at Maryland.
She'd be well in the mix, yeah. And she's not too slow. Okay. So just keep going to questions. Who's next? What's the next person?
Okay, the next one is a really interesting one. Because this horse has been so good coming up the levels, and he's sort of surprised people on occasion. Tim Price, Happy Boy, who were the 7-year-old young horse world champions in 2019, which kind of came out of nowhere. They've also won the long format 3-star in Haradapan. They've been really well placed in that Nations Cup in Haradapan the following year. They were 6th at Mill Street 4-star long format last year, and they won Buccalo. Finished on their dressage score of 25.6. And I would actually say he's not going to start in the low 20s. However, whatever he starts on, this horse is more than capable of finishing on. He's only actually been to 1 international this year. Jumped double clear at Mill Street very slowly cross country. That was a prep in the 4-star short for Lemulin, which he never actually ended up going to. So he's been campaigned very lightly. And then Tim obviously really only kind of presses all of the buttons on the big occasion. So that's why it's kind of a bit of an unknown quantity sometimes. However, being honest, I mean, this horse finished on his dressage score a lot. From 11 internationals that he's started, he's been on his dressage score in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. You know, he's actually very, very reliable. He's a very good show jumper on the final day. He's fast cross country, usually very reliable cross country as well. If he's anywhere in touch after dressage, look out, because Tim Price will be a man on a mission. Disappointing to miss Maryland, but actually,
that's a good point.
Really interesting. This
the Spike Glove Happy Boy, is that a real thing?
Spike loves Happy Boy. Spike loves Happy Boy.
What question are we asking about them?
How low they can go in the first phase.
Well, also, I mean, they haven't done much since they won Buccalo.
No, I mean the horse has been. I wonder what they've done. Nationally. To be honest, you know, Tim's a little bit like this. You know, he's quite careful with how the horses sort of get campaigned. He wouldn't be one to go and necessarily run in and win a lot of 4-star shorts.
Yeah.
Whereas the likes of Laura and London 52, for example, or Ros and Islot DHI, you know, they're quite prolific in those sort of short format internationals because that's what works for them. So he's not, you know, he's not done a huge amount. I would say he's done a good few open intermediates. So since Lemulin, I would imagine the plan was very much bring him back and aim for Pau. And he went to Aston Lewells, jumped a very good double clear. He went to Cornbury and jumped a very good double clear in the OI. He went to Little Downham, jumped double clear, finished second in the advanced. And then he went to Osby and jumped double clear and picked up a few time in the OI to pick up a placing as well. So he's had 4 national runs over the last couple of months. I'd say his prep is absolutely fine. It's just a case of how low he can go in the dressage for me.
God, I think he's the first one without a question. I'll tell you what his question will be. He's now, with the Falco withdrawal from Maryland, Happy Boy potentially is going to have to step up more towards a Paris contender. Like, was it recently, Nicole, that we listed them all as the Paris? Who were the 3 Paris horses for Tim?
Girillo's in the mix for me.
Yeah, sorry, you had Girillo at number 3.
No, I have Girillo at number 2. I think he's moved up to number 2. I reckon.
Behind Falco?
No, Falco, Girillo, Happy Boy. Only because, and I'm going to put this out there, only because, and it depends how he comes out next spring, because he's still got a bit to find in terms of experience level.
Okay.
But Girillo, while much less experienced, can go lower in the first phase and is equally a good jumper. So that, I think, is a really interesting dynamic. Especially considering we haven't seen a huge amount of Happy Boy. That's obviously going to change this weekend internationally. So yeah, I'm they're his 3. I think it'll be a very interesting one as to how this weekend plays out for Happy Boy. I mean, but I would be expecting him to go well cross country. I think he should be probably on the podium.
I'm going to put something out there. This is the first horse that we've come to, Nicole, that for me doesn't really have a question to answer. They have actually, if the only question that we're putting on eyes a lot is that they haven't been at the level, then I don't think this horse has been at the level yet either. This is the first.
No, this is a 5-star first time. I think Isolot, yes, he hasn't been at the level. He's had the odd 20, like from Bramham, where it was a funny
This
little
fella
spook.
was eliminated in Linear.
Didn't Tim jump the wrong fence?
Yeah.
I'm sure he jumped the wrong fence. It was quite late on in the course. I'm pretty certain he jumped the wrong fence, or he missed a fence or something mad. I don't think it was the horse's fault. From memory. Okay, let's talk about a couple of the others, because actually there are so many other good horses. This is a really, really strong field, listeners. You have got Philip Dutton and Z flying the US flag. We should have actually had Will Coleman and Chin Tonic, which would have been an absolutely fascinating addition to this field and would have been right up amongst the leaders. But Mr. Prep Run hasn't quite got the fitness, and therefore he's not coming. So Philip is flying the US flag with Z, and actually Z is bidding to make it 9 clear rounds from 9 cross-country starts. He's currently 8 from 8. Fun quiz for you, D, because you know I love this one. 100% 5-star record. Classic Moe, 12 from 12. She's retired, but she was 12 from 12. That was these are the horses that have the highest number of clear rounds at 5-star on 100%. So they've never had a problem. Ballamore class is 11 from 11.
Yeah.
Then you've got one other horse with more than 8. So Philip Dutton is currently on 8. He is 8 from 8 at the moment. He's bidding to make it 9 from 9. He's bidding to equal one other 5-star legend who is 9 from 9. And again, not actually active in the sport. Any guesses as to who that might be? I'll give you a clue. Former Burley winner.
Was she competing in Maryland?
The rider was competing in Maryland, yes.
I know who it was. It was Caroline Powell and Lenamore.
Correct. They were 9 from 9 as well. So no other horses have got 100% 5-star record above 8 from 8.
That's quite surprising.
Well, if you look at horses like Le Biesthetique Sam, actually he had, there's a few other horses like Nereo and Armada who have
They're the ones that were coming
clear rounds. Yeah, they have more clear rounds. I think they're on like 13 and 14. Or they were on 13, 14, because obviously they're not active within the sport. But they did have problems. So their record wasn't flawless.
Yeah.
I think that's the 100% thing is the big thing. Like Le Biesthetique Sam, again, absolutely impeccable record, but it's not quite flawless. They had that fall at Burley. or the 20 penalties at Burley, beg your pardon. Fisher Rakana again had the fall at Burley, didn't she, when she tripped in the water. So it's just really interesting. It's a fun little angle to be looking at for Philip Sutton this weekend. Gaspard Maxud, Zaragoza, really exciting to see them there for France. And actually, we won't go into too much detail on them because we've got a whole show with Gaspard that was out last week or so in partnership with Equiloom. Go and give it a listen. He gives us real insight into sort of his preparations and also why he's taking her to 5-star. The horse is fit. She's well. She's ready to go. They wanted to do another long format this year. Fair play to them. That is really exciting, especially given the strength in the French team at the moment. Izzy Taylor and Happy Days is in the field also. And Izzy kind of putting her run of bad form this year. She's just not, things just haven't quite gone to plan this year for her. Behind her with a good win in the 6-year-old division in Le Lion d'Angers, which will have done her confidence, I'm sure, the absolute world of good. She has Happy Days, who is a really interesting one. Went to she go to badminton, and then she had a fall cross country. Also picked up 20 penalties cross country at Bramham, but were just outside the top 20 at Pau last year. So have got 5-star form. For me, they'd probably have to go a little way to catch up on a few of those that we've spoken about so far. But I think that's a really interesting angle for Izzy. And I think she's the confidence side of things will certainly have been helped by a good result at Pau, at Le Lion before Pau. Right. Boyd Martin, D.
Yep.
Federman B, who actually was best of the US combinations when he was, I think, was he 4th at, no, that was Luke 140. Federman B was in the top 10 at Le Moulin this year. I think he was 8th. This is a really, really good horse. And I don't think Boyd would be bringing him over to Pau if he didn't feel that it was a worthwhile trip, because he could have actually taken him to Maryland, which obviously was much closer to home. And he's already had one sort of flight this year. What do you think about their chances?
I'm actually just looking them up. Sorry, not that I don't know anything about them, but I'm just interested in. Yeah, so they haven't run since June, since Le Moulin. Top 10 finished there.
They'll have run in US.
Yeah, sorry, internationally.
Event. Yeah, they'll have run in US national events. Similar sort of campaign, I would have thought, to Tim's Happy Boy.
Yeah. This is the horse that won the showcase event at Aiken, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
He did, yeah. He has just the most amazing story. So he was campaigned by Annie Goodwin, who unfortunately passed away, and he's sort of gone to Boyd very much to be ridden in her memory. And actually, Annie's name's still very much part of his journey. And I think when you look at where they've come over the last sort of 18 months, it's been a really emotional journey, and it's that sort of story that really captures the imagination, isn't it? Annie would be so proud, and I know Boyd probably feels a good bit of pressure to be able to deliver as well. It's bigger than eventing, if that makes sense. The story is bigger than eventing. This horse actually, he went well in New Jersey at a national event there. He did actually go to 2 internationals, Great Meadow and Plantation, and didn't complete cross country, just actually went for the jumping and the dressage. So he has been out internationally. Needs to probably again be starting in the 20s to be competing with the very, very top few here. I think he's a strong chance for the US team, and I think it'll be an interesting one for Boyd String going into next year, because a strong result here for him with Federman B again throws him into the mix of when you're looking at Boyd's potential Paris options. Luke 140 was 4th at Le Moulin, but actually hasn't run this autumn or this fall, and didn't go to Maryland. Sets a Leg and On Cue, both brilliant horses, but probably heading towards the latter stages of their career. He had that good win at Morven Park with Commando 3, but actually, Federman B is very much up there amongst with his top rides now. So just an interesting one to follow throughout the week.
I think this is a very interesting one, Nicole. So here's my take. It was a bit of a surprise when Philip was not on the team.
Last year for Pratoni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he'd been such an ever-present for so long that it almost felt like they're never going to not pick Philip. And by the way, like, you look at Z, and I really rate Z. I think this fella's under pressure. He's,
Which fella?
Boyd. Like, Boyd is Mr. America. He's loved over there, Nicole. Like, he's absolutely, I mean, our American listeners will have an opinion on this, because they're closer to it. My take on it from the outside, the stars and stripes at the trot ups, the personality that he brings, the charisma. He is he's a huge part of eventing in America, and he brings with him, a great story, loads of chat. You go all the way back to, the story of himself and Philip and the fire and Neville Bardos, who I think was in Maryland, but I didn't get to see. Anyway,
oh my God. Right, D. Neville Bardo was in Maryland and you didn't get to go and see him.
You can't call him Neville Bardo.
Do you call him Neville Bardos?
Yeah.
Neville Bardo. I would call him Neville Bardo, but I mean.
Oh, Nicole, you don't watch Chopper, mate. Chopper Reed, mate. Neville Bardos, mate. You're going to have to pay me, Neville.
No idea. I have no idea who that is or what that accent is.
I'm going to count to 20, mate. And you're going to have to start paying me, Neville. And Neville Bardos was made famous by Mark Chopper Reed.
Okay. Australian?
Yeah, Australian
okay.
crime fella.
Okay.
But he was very much a Bardos, not Bardo.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I can't believe you didn't go and see what, like, a legend, absolute legend. That story is incredible.
Yeah, no, but actually, if I'm honest, I would have been there for Campbelda, who I didn't get to see either. Anyway, I think he's under a bit of pressure because he has been so long a stalwart of that US team. There's been so much around Philip and Boyd. Never would a team be made without them. Maybe in a way that we had here with Tina, William, Pippa. For a while, there was a feeling that, like, you could never get past them because they would always be the ones with the experience. And how could you ever get experience if you were never given it? I think the strength of everything coming through in the US right now, you look at the artist formerly known as Caroline Martin, pushing and pushing and pushing. Actually, on the other side, I think this fellow's under pressure.
I'd agree. I mean, I think there is so much strength and depth. Their place on the team is not assured, and they have to.
But they did have 4 horses. Like, if he had 4 horses, he was such a good rider and is such a good rider. You felt he was going on one of his 4, but they're not all there. Like,
I feel like there is a changing of the guard within Boyd String, and Tim Price has had it, Oliver Townend has it, all of these top riders have it. When you have that much strength and depth, there becomes a time where actually the young guns have to kind of come through and step up. The older crew have different plans and sort of making that step down. Now, it could be that both of those horses continue on into next year. I'm not saying that they're not going to, but it just feels like that slight changing of the guard. He's got horses stepping up and he needs Federman B to step up here this weekend as a potential Paris horse, maybe. Then you've got other horses that perhaps might have other plans as well. I just want to keep things moving, because actually I was just looking down the entry list, and there are so many other good horses that we have not talked about. The strength and depth in this field is incredible. Pippa Funnel also has MCS Maverick, who won the 4-star long format Bramham this year. Was absolutely brilliant. Now, I remember interviewing Pippa a good bit in the couple of days of dressage, and she was absolutely terrified. She was so nervous, but she was nervous not about the cross country. Actually, couldn't wait to go and tackle Ian Stark's cross country track, about the dressage with this horse, because he's not the most straightforward. And it was really interesting talking to her about the psychology of kind of getting inside a horse's head and finding out what makes them tick. And it is what makes her so brilliant, because that for her is what makes her tick. That is what drives her. That is what keeps her in the sport, is finding the key to these horses. She found the key. She did a great dressage test, and everybody kind of turned around and went, I don't know what she was worrying about. But cross country, he was just brilliant. And he gave me real kind of old school Pippa Funnel Supreme Rock vibes. He was very much that sort of stamp. I was unbelievably impressed with him, and I'm really excited to see him step up to 5-star. And I think, having seen Pippa come back from the cross country, having had that sort of ride, that's the kind of horse that actually goes well this weekend. We'll be seeing them at the big B's next year, Badminton Burley, and I'm totally here for it. We talk about William bidding for another 5-star win. Yes, Pippa had one back in 2019, but gosh, like, she has been at the top level of this sport for such a long time. Love Pippa Funnel, and MCS Maverick just
Pippa.
loved it. It was brilliant. So basically, look out for them. Oliver Townend has Tregilder, who is one of the fastest horses in the world at the moment. You know, we saw Colorado Blue, one of the fastest horses in the world, win Maryland. If Poe comes down to a time test, Tregilder is absolutely going to be the one that is going to really capitalize on that as well. He is very experienced at the 5-star level now. He's got a 3% win chance, but I actually think that he's probably a little bit above those ahead of him. He's equal with the likes of Izzy Taylor, Happy Days, Boyd and Vitamin B, and for me, he kind of falls a little bit above them. Oliver, obviously in good form, third at Maryland. Tregilder was the one that was running really, really well at Burley when his rein snapped on Winners Avenue. He had to pull up. So rerouting from Burley, not because something went wrong in the jumping side of things, just attack malfunction meant that their day ended early. Janelle Price, D. McLaren is back. She also has Hiarado, but we haven't seen a huge amount of McLaren this year. Lightly campaigned, I think, quite tactically by the prices, with Happy Boy maybe as well, and McLaren kind of, they've been careful. They haven't had a championship to aim for, so it is about giving them the right kind of runs ready for next year. McLaren was 7th at the Worlds. What do you reckon his chances of Poe are? Janelle won here 12 months ago. Grapanera.
Yeah, feels like a long time ago. We ended up chatting with Sam. Sam was watching the Dan Carter documentary on the plane over to Maryland, and we ended up chatting about Kiwis generally, both those in eventing and former All Blacks teams, current All Blacks team. There's a humility attached to kind of a ruthlessness, which is an interesting mix that's very hard to capture in lots of other countries or disciplines. I think it fits this pair really well. You know, they're kind and they're humble. They never talk themselves up, but they also never talk themselves down, you know, in a way that like maybe Irish or English people do, which would be, oh, well, I'm not riding great at the moment. Yeah. They actually never do that. They never talk themselves down. But equally, you would never kind of think of them as cocky or arrogant or, you know, overly forward in terms of their chances. In that sense, I'd be very careful to say, oh, I don't know where they both are, because they've proved it again and again. It's a difficult year, I would say. They haven't as many horses as they had at the start of the year. They've navigated their way through the year. It's also, I remember, was it when they were 1 and 2? I think Sam was talking to Janelle, or maybe it was Tim. Maybe he was talking to Tim, but it was something along the lines of, it's one thing to get to number 1. It's a totally other thing to stay here, to stay at the top. In that context, it was world number 1. In this context, I think it's a little bit like we associate them with leading the line for New Zealand all the time, in a way that even when Toddy, Blythe, and Andrew maybe were at the top of their powers, they kind of shared it around. Whereas in this case, at the moment, it's sort of Tim and Janelle. I mean, one or the other. Do you know what I mean? All the time. What I mean is, all the time, to be the leader of eventing for a big eventing power, with never the chance to turn off. Every big competition, so I was like, oh, well, hey, where's Happy Boy? That fellow used to be good. He won Buckle. I haven't seen him in ages. Oh, yeah, don't worry. He's doing national events. He's getting ready. Where's Falco? Okay, Falco's at home getting better. Where's Grappanegra? It's hard going. They're always in the spotlight. There's no downtime. I don't think they'll mind that, but equally, there's no doubt it must be hard. In that sense, I don't know is the honest answer on this one. I don't think they'll win.
I'll be honest, I didn't think Grappanegra was going to win last year. I was wrong, so who knows? I'm not sure Janelle thought she was going to win, totally, to be fair.
But I mean, it is unlikely, basically. It's not based on the field.
It's unlikely.
I mean,
I think it's an interesting one coming back, and actually we're looking at McLaren very much, I think, with a view to he needs a qualification result this year in terms of an Olympic qualification run also. So,
okay.
He'll have next spring to be able to get that as well, but make no mistake, they'll be much happier putting him away for the winter if they've got that qualification under their belt, because it means then they can plan next spring sort of backwards, and they don't, from Paris, they don't have to kind of go and get a qualification run as well. So basically how it works, apologies if you already know this, but just to clarify it for those that don't or aren't too sure, is to be eligible for selection for Paris as a combination, you need to have, amongst other things, there's plenty of other criteria as well, but you must have a MER result, so minimum eligibility requirement result, at 4-star long or 5-star in the year that precedes the Olympics. So anytime from the start of 2023, a qualifying result at 4-star long or 5-star long. And then the deadline is, I believe it's somewhere around the beginning of June next year. I'd check the official documentation. It could be the 1st of June. So they must have it next spring. Otherwise, they're not eligible to go to the Olympics. If they went to Bramham, for example, in June and got a 4-star long qualification, that's too late. They wouldn't be eligible for selection if they haven't already had one in that time frame. So, a lot of riders, that's why Yaz took Banzai de Loire to Blenheim. Tick that box. Don't have to worry about it next spring. It's a big kind of deal. And Michael Young took Fisher Chipmunk FRH, who was in a similar fashion to a 4-star long format. Was it in Strigom, I think, or Linear, I think, maybe. And again, ticked that box. Don't have to worry about it next spring because things hadn't gone to plan for them at their earlier results earlier on in the year. So that's just something else to think about with a few of these combinations. Kylie Roddy is back with SRS Can Do, Gorgeous George, which is just lovely. So excited to see him back at a 5-star. I know he has a massive fan club. Alex Bragg's Ardeo Premier steps up to 5-star level for the first time. You've got Austrian superstar, actually, DSB Fighting Line, Leah Siegel, one of the fastest combinations in the field. They will be hoping that it is a tough time test. And actually that horse, DSB Fighting Line, was on the podium in Arville in the Nations Cup there. He has had so much experience, top 25 at Protoni, has been top 20 at Aachen last year, top 15 in Tokyo. So that's a really, really exciting one for Austria. Leah has been in very good form this year as well. Who else is there in here? You've got Joseph Murphy with Barrichello, which is an interesting one. Kirsty Chabert and Classic, who actually they feature a little bit down the prediction centre, but this combination have been in really, really strong form in so much as actually they've had some great wins over in Ireland against some very competitive fields. They were winners in Lisgarvan, finished on their dressage score of 26 there. Second in Mill Street, all at 4-star short, this is. Interestingly, their long formats this year haven't quite gone to plan. So Kentucky this spring, they had a 20 penalties. They actually had 20 penalties at Aachen as well, which put them out of contention. But they then had 15 penalties. They had a flag penalty at Blenheim, which I can't actually remember seeing. But other than that, they had a good, solid performance in the other couple of phases. So good to see them at 5-star. And I think it's an interesting one because actually they're sort of being... they've only got a 2% win chance on paper, but I would again say, this is a horse that's been on the podium at Le Moulin before, more than capable of being right in the mix here amongst some of these horses. So some really, really strong competition at Pau this year. Dee, I'm going to have to put you on the spot. Podium time. I might throw mine in first actually, because I feel like I'm going to. Winner for me, Ros Cantor, is a lot DHI. Second is going to be Tom McHugh and JL Dublin. Third, Tim Price and Happy Boy. And my dark horse as one to watch, we haven't actually mentioned them on the show yet, Tom Jackson and Farndon. They were 6th at Le Moulin this year. Tom, very talented jockey. I'm not going to get away with Kirsty Chabert as a dark horse. So Tom Jackson and Farndon, my dark horses. Who's your podium?
Happy Boy wins.
To win?
Yep.
Okay.
Tregilder, second.
Okay.
Zaragoza, Gaspar Maksud, third.
Oh, what happens to Isolot and JL Dublin, D?
Both of them have 20s.
Okay. Bold.
It's
all
a
right.
British,
what about your dark horse?
I need to take this approach, Nicole, because of my confidence that
Cooley
Rosalind
Rosalind
is
will be the next British 5-star
I need to
winner.
really invest in that.
I think you're invested. I think you're there. What about your dark horse?
Could I just include Piggy March and Cool Park Sarko as
in fourth?
Well, as playing a big role this weekend.
Okay.
I think they're the most likely challengers. I don't know where to put them. They don't have a neat place for me, but they could easily win this. My dark horse is Samantha Lissington and Rickeridge Sutty.
You know what? I just saw them and I was thinking, we should have mentioned them. Yeah, fair play. Been a while since we've seen Sam.
It's an interesting. It's a big weekend for the Kiwis generally. So you have a lot of Kiwis here. It's one of your big Paris tests. It feels like when you have them all come together. And we talked about it on the Marlin show, but I think we'll know a lot more about the landscape after today. Jesse Campbell's here, Sam Lissington's here, the Prices are here, Muzzy Pottinger's here. Yeah, there's a few. I'm just trying to see if there's anyone else as I look through.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, listeners. End of the season, we're gonna pick our Paris teams just quickly, just for fun, just to see if we get any right.
Yep, sure. That's mine.
Okay, brilliant field in Pau this weekend. Enjoy it if you're watching. Enjoy it if you're going. looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Big thank you to Achieve Equine, Flare Nasal Strips for their support of the show. All of their details and the links that you need are in our show notes. So do go and pay them a visit. It is well worth investigating, and you can find out much more. And if you've got any questions, ask them, because they'd be very happy to explain it, probably in much more detail and more eloquently than I did. But hopefully it's given you a very good idea. Dee, thank you. I'm actually going to go and find my family because the house has gone quiet and totally empty. The cars have driven off. No idea where they've gone. Maybe I could just hang out here for a couple of hours of peace and quiet. But no. Looking forward to another brilliant week of 5-star competition. And listeners, thank you always for tuning in. Don't forget, if you haven't already, go and hit that subscribe button. We've got tons of really cool content coming for you over the winter. So please, please, please hit subscribe and you won't miss a thing. Thanks for listening.